How's it going, Ram fans? Welcome back from spring break and to the return of Monday Night Sports. Just returning from Indianapolis, I'm Madeline Davis.
And I'm Ella Fredrickson, here to put a cap on some winter sports for CSU that just finished up and look ahead to what's going on as spring begins to bloom. From a recap of how the Rams did down in Indy for March Madness and an early look into next year.
From Cam breaking down all of the craziness that was the NFL free agent market all of last week.
And of course, how could we forget about our favorite part of the show, Out of Pocket, where we'll pick some upcoming games in the NCAA tournament and talk it out over our thoughts on how the Mountain West did in the big dance this year. All of that and more coming up on CTV Sports, which tips off right now.
Okay, before we get into everything else, CSU men's basketball was down in Indianapolis for the big dance, and we have to talk about it. So after being one of the first 4 teams left out of the NCAA tournament last spring, the green and gold clearly had one goal in mind coming into this March, which of course was to hear their names on Selection Sunday. And as you can tell from what I said at the start, they definitely accomplished this simple objective, being revealed as a 6th seed in the South region, where they were pitted against a powerhouse of a program, an 11 seed Michigan, placing them in Indy's Gainbridge Fieldhouse this past weekend to take on the Wolverines in the first round of this year's run to the Final Four. And if you haven't already heard, this matchup against such a storied team didn't exactly go as planned. Gold stay in Indy being done earlier than any other team in the tournament, taking the L on Thursday afternoon in a heartbreaking loss to UM 75-63, where CSU faithful really felt like they were on their way to their first March Madness win since 2013. But alas, it was just not meant to be. But before we talk about this crushing end result for the Rams, let's talk about the positives. Come early Thursday afternoon, CSU came out incredibly strong, filling up the stat sheet in the first half full of 3-pointers to go along with plenty of incredible bench celebrations. Simply put, the Rams just looked like they couldn't miss. And they even got up to a 15-point lead at one point. But as you can tell by the final score, that early advantage didn't last long and was already cut in half by the time halftime rolled around, with the Rams up 7, 36-29. And unlike a lot of times this season, the momentum didn't swing the Rams' way out of the locker room, with Michigan going on to score 46 in the second half, thanks to a bunch of momentum and crowd support from UM fans after freshman Frankie Collins hit a crazy 3 from the corner. All in all, CSU just went cold from the field and couldn't keep up with the Wolverines, which ended up resulting in this first-round exit. And sure, while this was obviously not the result that the green and gold would have liked, we have to keep in mind that this team came into the tournament still super inexperienced when it comes to the postseason, with sophomore guard Baylor Hebb as the only player on the entire roster that had ever been dancing entering last week, when his former club Loyola Chicago made another run to the Sweet 16 last year. Michigan, on the other hand, though, is a consistent powerhouse and entered the season fresh off yet another run to the Elite Eight. And the players were unaware of this coming into this tournament either, with David Roddy saying this in the post-game presser about the differences in experience.
When that buzzer sounds, you just embrace the moment and, accept the loss. Michigan, again, is Michigan. They're an amazing program, and, we strive to be, a team like that. So, just embrace it and just ready for the offseason now.
And with that, let's finally look past this season-ending L. I know it hurts right now, but look at the big picture. Overall, this was still a very successful season for Rams basketball. They went for a 25-6 record, which was the best season they've had since 2014-15, where they went 27-7. Oh, and this was also Nico Medved's third 20-plus win season in a row. Not to mention that the major success on the court this year helped the Rams achieve their highest NCAA seeding in program history with the 6th seed. And of course, not only did this squad receive a bunch of accolades, but its players also earned a bunch of praise, including David Roddy winning Mountain West Player of the Year and an AP All-American honorable mention for a spectacular junior season. And his running mate Isaiah Stevens received some honors of his own, making his mark towards a spot on the Mountain West second team while also grabbing a 3.51 GPA, which rightfully placed him on the COSITA Academic All-District first team. To sum things up, I don't care that they didn't end things out with a win. This was still a fantastic season for Rams hoops. And through all of the ups and downs, these young men should be incredibly proud of what they accomplished. In addition to, of course, being super excited for this upcoming season. Exactly like I am.
Madeline, I know you felt that environment, as did I. That was a heavy Michigan fan environment. And I know Michigan fans are everywhere, but I do have to wonder if that took a toll on CSU playing an unfamiliar turf.
It was very strange. I remember once Frankie Collins hit that three, I mean, that was the first three that Michigan hit in the game, and the stadium just erupted.
Everything shifted after that point.
It was very interesting energy, and I definitely do think that it could have had an impact in the result.
Well, you know, Indianapolis is only 4 hours away from Ann Arbor, and I made the drive, and I'm sure they did too. I can't blame them. And sticking to closing things out for CSU on the hardwood, while Rams women's hoops, as you already know, fell just short of the big dance a few weeks ago down in Vegas against UNLV, they still had a postseason game to play come late last week. And no, I am not talking about the NCAA tournament, of course, but the WNIT, where Coach Williams and crew traveled all the way up to Portland, Oregon to take on the Portland University Pilots at their place for the Chili Center for a first-round matchup. And obviously, as I mentioned at the top, this one wrote a finish to what was an inconsistent, and I'll say it, up and down season for the green and gold, with CSU ultimately taking the L in this one 72-63 to eliminate them from postseason play. And with that, they're probably wondering exactly what happened for the Rams to fall this flat when it mattered the most. Well, it all starts with a sloppy beginning right from tip-off, where the home squad quickly jumped out to a 20-10 advantage after one. Now, the Pilots didn't get to fourth place in the WCC by accident, and the suffocating full-court pressure they put on display early proved to be way too much for CSU's offense from the jump, forcing some quick turnovers in the backcourt and some, let's be honest, pretty ugly-looking shots from the green and gold once they moved the ball past half court. But luckily for Ram fans, this shell shock from early on didn't last forever, with CSU regaining their footing in the second, and thanks to Portland cooling off from three-point land where they started off at 4 for 7, the green and gold were actually able to battle their way back to make this one a game, going on an 11-0 run midway through the third to claw their way back within one. But unfortunately after that, it just seemed like CSU ran out of steam, with the Pilots going on a tear of their own to lead by 8 entering the final and decisive quarter, where they were able to close things out and keep McKenna Hofschild with the rest of the Rams offense at bay, never looking back from a 12-point advantage with 5 minutes left to send the UP fans up in the Chili Center home happy. But of course, we can't wrap things up without going through the numbers real quick, so let's start things out with the leaders for the Rams. Sure, while McKenna Hofschild led this team in scoring like she usually does, with 19 points to go along with 8 assists to add on to her season-shattering mark here at CSU, it honestly wasn't even close to get it done in this one. I mean, to put it into perspective, the only other scorer for the green and gold in double figures was Kendall Kinzer with 12. While the Pilots had a whopping 4 players that put up more than 10, including a game-high 23 from UP's Rose Flugg. And when you combine this with the 40 paint points for Portland when compared to the green and gold's 24, it's pretty clear to see exactly why the Rams never led the entire night. So, just like that, that's the season for CSU women's hoops. They finished the season off at 21-12 and 9-9 in the Mountain West in what was a pretty successful but albeit inconsistent year. Nonetheless, all of us here at CTV Sports will still never forget their run down in Vegas at the Mountain West tournament, where they almost pulled out a miraculous appearance in March Madness against all the odds, which leaves me excited to see where this program will go in the future.
Yeah, Ella, I am excited for this program in the future. I think they have a bright future ahead of them.
No, absolutely. You know, there are a few problems here and there, but nothing they can't fix. I mean, this is a resilient squad, and I'm really, really excited for next year and all of the upcoming teams that this school sees.
Yeah, for sure. And to finally switch it up from all of that action on the hardwood, CSU women's softball didn't enjoy much success over the weekend either, taking a trio of L's in this weekend's triple header against conference rival San Diego State on the road trip out to Cali, where they really struggled to find any sort of competitiveness against a solid Aztec team and pushing them to a disappointing 8-16 overall record throughout the first month or so of the season, not to mention a rough 0-3 start to Mountain West play. So let's break down how it all happened, starting with their first matchup against SDSU early on Saturday afternoon. This one quickly set the tone for the rest of the weekend's action, with the Rams only going for a combined 2 hits against some solid Aztec pitching, while also giving up a whopping 6 runs to SDSU. But hey, at least these 2 hits by the Green and Gold didn't go completely to waste, with Daniel Cerna hitting a bomb out to center to put the Rams on the board in the 5th. But obviously, with how many runs they gave up, it just wasn't enough, with the home team going for a total of 6 RBIs and 10 hits, including sophomore Mac Barbara, who put in 4 RBIs and a home run of her own. And so, were the Rams able to improve on this, let's be honest, pretty terrible performance their first time out? Well, definitely not. Being held scoreless on their 3 hits and wasting a great 6-inning outing from sophomore pitcher Sydney Hornbuckle in Game 2 for a 2-0 L on Saturday night before turning right around on Sunday and, well, somehow doing even worse, getting run-ruled in by far their worst outing all season. Thanks in part to a 7-run, that's right, 7-run second inning that put CSU out of it before things even really got started. Not to mention only 1 hit from the Green and Gold all game long. After this brutal weekend for the Rams, let's hope they can use this adversity as some added motivation when they take on the San Jose State Spartans right here on campus at Ram Field. The Spartans hold a 16-10 record and are riding a 2-game winning streak. And we'll just have to wait and see if the Rams are able to turn things around with a couple of wins against SJSU come this weekend.
Oh, and you thought we were done with basketball? Well, not so fast. The Nugs battled the 4th-place team in the Eastern Conference right now, the Boston Celtics, down the road in Ball Arena. So how'd they do exactly against a squad that's on this much of a roll? Well, to follow the theme of heartbreak, disappointment, and losing that this show has followed so far, the Nuggets did much of the same, taking a 20-point L, 104-124, to fall to 42-30 and to the 7th seed in the West, currently flirting with missing out on the postseason. Let's take a look at how it all went down. From the start last night, Boston controlled the pace in front of the home fans in Denver, but at least for the first quarter, the Nugs were able to keep up pretty well and stay within reach, only being down 6 entering the second. But thanks to a horrific performance leading up to the half, marked by a 28-7 run in the final 7 or so minutes before the break, the Nugs found themselves in a shocking 25-point hole entering the third. So were they able to cut into the lead at all? Well, as you can tell by the final score, not really. With the Celtics holding on to a 20-point lead, or even worse at some points, for basically all of the second half. The Joker, like he always does, had his moments, but as to be expected, when he goes, this team goes. And thanks to an off-shooting night where he was only 8 of 23 from the field, which helped contribute to his first game without a double-double in over 2 months, it's pretty obvious to see why this Denver team, still waiting on a potential return from Jamal Murray, wasn't able to fight their way back into this one. It's not like the reigning MVP's off night really mattered in the grand scheme of things. I mean, the Nugs let both Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum drop 30 on their heads. So unless he would have hit like 10 more of his shots, it probably still wouldn't have been enough. So after that fat L at home, Denver now shifts their focus to another huge matchup in their race for the postseason, hosting the squad right behind them in the Western standings, the LA Clippers, and what I think is a must win for this team. Obviously, my fingers are crossed that they can get it done and stay in prime position for the playoffs.
And with that, Rams, it's time for a very quick break.
When we come back, Cam will walk us through some of the most memorable moves around the NFL. You won't want to miss it.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
What's up, Rams, and welcome back to Cam's Corner. I'm your host, Cameron Evig. Man, am I so glad to be back right where I belong, next to the TV, now that we're done with spring break. Now, of course, with that much-needed break comes a bunch of news that we missed over the past several days, which Madeline and Ella filled you in on just a little bit. But hey, it hasn't all been bad for Colorado sports recently, because I'm sure you've heard the Broncos are one of the many teams that recently made a splash in the NFL free agency. Check out the squads that I think improved the most over this year's spending spree in pro football. All that and more on Cam's Corner, which starts right now. It may be the NFL offseason, which you might think is a slow time for football news. But like I said at the top, the league has been, well, pretty active recently, with big trades left and right, and some massive free agent pickups making the NFL look like it's Madden. So, with that being said, I'm sure you want to hear what I thought about all the madness. Who wouldn't? So here are the top 3 teams that I feel like have done the best so far in free agency this year. And we're going to start out in LA with the Chargers. That guy is one of the big reasons, but let's start with J.C. Jackson. J.C. Jackson coming over from the New England Patriots, an absolutely phenomenal cornerback, second in the league last year, trailing only Trevon Diggs in the amount of interceptions that he got. One of the top 5 cornerbacks in the league, in my opinion, absolutely locked down is J.C. Jackson. Going to be great to pair with Asante Samuel and Derwin James in that Chargers secondary. Can't forget about Khalil Mack, though. We know how good this guy is. Had the stint with the Raiders that made him the player he was. His time with the Bears was a little bit underwhelming for Bears fans. Only 6 sacks last year, but we know what kind of player he can be when he's healthy. The Chargers are my number 3 team on the list. Number 2, this one might come as a surprise, but it's the Denver Broncos. Now you might be thinking, who could possibly have made a better move than getting Russell Wilson? And I'll get there. But let's not forget, the Broncos had to give up a lot for Russell Wilson. 2 firsts, 2 seconds, Drew Lock, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, all for Russell Wilson. And I think it's okay. Alberto's a great backup tight end, and now he's going to have an increased role. Russell Wilson is that spot that everybody said they needed. The whole time last year, all you heard are the Broncos are a quarterback away. The Broncos are a quarterback away. Well, we got a quarterback. Along with a quarterback, we got Randy Gregory, who has been a very good pass rusher for the Cowboys in the past, and he can get back to the level where he is an elite pass rusher, as we saw him do before. A big contract for Randy, which is a little concerning, but at least we're not paying Von Miller $150 million like the Bills are. DJ Jones, the perfect middle run stuffer. Can't forget about how good DJ is going to be in the middle of those 2 outside linebackers with Randy Gregory and Bradley Chubb rushing the passer. I think the Broncos D-line is something to be scared of next year. Finally, the number 1 team, the Las Vegas Raiders, and now that hurts to say, but Chandler Jones and Davante Adams are now on the Raiders, Davante Adams being back with his old college quarterback, and it's gonna be a great time for Derek Carr because of how much chemistry these two have. At Fresno State, they were absolutely unstoppable, being 15th in the nation at one point. And Davante Adams is still, for my money, the best receiver in the league. Cooper Kupp had a phenomenal year. But overall, I think Davante still has a little bit of an edge on him. Can't forget about the Chandler Jones sighting, right across from Max Crosby. Chandler Jones, Max Crosby. Who do you double team? You got to double them both. You leave a tight end in. What do you do? All I'm saying is this AFC West is the best division in football, not close. And these D-lines in the AFC West, excluding, well, the Chiefs, who have Chris Jones but are missing that second pass rusher. Wow, this NFL season is going to be an absolute doozy. And, well, I could talk about how much the NFL has changed over a short 7-day period for hours and hours, but unfortunately, that's all the time I got tonight. But hey, we aren't done just yet. You better stick around for Out of Pocket right after this.
Queen is just my everything. Right now, I wouldn't know where my life would be without her.
They say chivalry's dead. It's not. Terrence is a gentleman. He opens doors. His smile did it. His smile, his eyes, his knowledge. My landlord, he decided that he wanted me to move based on the fact that I was transgender. It takes me to a place of no hope It takes me to a place of loneliness. It saddens me. When you discriminate against somebody in housing, where do these people go? Let's just respect people in everyday life for just being human.
What's up, Ram fans? Welcome back from the break, and yes, to the return of Out of Pocket. I don't even have to explain how this thing works at this point, so let's just get into the debate. Yikes. After Friday's action, the Mountain West Conference's record in March Madness this year fell to 0-4, with every team that made it from the conference failing to reach even the round of 32. So with those results in mind, the question I have for you all this week is a pretty obvious one. All season, we were hyping up this Mountain West as this loaded, underrated, underrespected, and really deep conference. But it's become pretty clear to me that it's the squads that don't even really stack up against the other schools across the nation, at least this year. So that's all I have to say. Did we overrate it a little bit, or was this performance in March just one big fluke?
Yeah, I can start with this one. I do still think that the Mountain West is a very strong conference. I think that they proved that, and I think it's just going to keep going in the right direction. I mean, most of these Mountain West teams are pretty young. And so the success they had this year, I mean, you know, when one of these teams is good, we saw it this year with CSU. They came in, and everybody knew they were going to be good. No one really expected the level from Boise and Wyoming. Yeah. And, I mean, we all know that San Diego State is good. They lost some players, and they gained some players. You know, Matt Bradley was definitely very helpful, and their defense was literally the second best in the nation. But I definitely think that when one of these teams is good, it pushes the rest of them to be good. And so I do think that we're going to continue to have this power conference for the next couple years.
And I think a lot of it, weirdly for me, has to do with the seeding, that ended up in the tournament this year.
It was very strange.
I feel like really good teams ended up with bad seeds. And I think that ended up with the average teams who should be playing other average teams kind of got screwed over a little bit.
I mean, I don't want to bash the NCAA, but some of these seeds seemed a little rigged, to be honest. I mean, Boise is an 8 seed. I am convinced that the only reason they had Boise as an 8 seed was so they would play Gonzaga in the second round if they won, and it was the Leon Rice Gonzaga coach matchup.
I mean, for me, listen, I don't think that that the Mountain West is going to be that powerhouse conference this year. We already see Wyoming falling apart before our very eyes. Lots of rumors about their coach going somewhere else, which I don't know what that program would do if they had to get a new head coach. Yeah. Hunter Maldonado and Graham Ike especially did not look good in that Indiana game. Maldonado stepped it up. Ike did not have a great game.
I wouldn't say that Maldonado stepped it up. He had 9 turnovers by himself.
I just don't think that they have the ability to play as they were playing so well together at the beginning of the season. Yeah. Completely fell apart at the end. Indiana beats them. I mean, you play against Memphis, a really tough squad if you're Boise.
Really good 9 seed.
Yeah,
and they gave Gonzaga a run for their money.
I was pulling for Memphis in that game.
Yeah,
pulling.
That was impressive.
Colorado State plays Michigan. We all saw what Aiden Hutchinson did to Colorado State and then did to Tennessee and then did to Purdue as well, but Purdue was able to outscore them just a little bit. Aiden Hutchinson had a great NCAA tournament. Although I feel like there were some matchups that were unfavorable for the Mountain West, I do not think that the Mountain West is going to have an opportunity like this again where they have 4 teams that have a shot at winning a first-round matchup.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the Mountain West still had an amazing season, but I'll agree to disagree. So let's move things forward and right into our pick'em, where we will pick some matchups from the Sweet 16. But first, let's update you guys on the records. So I hate to admit it, but Cam has caught up to me and actually has passed me.
Yes, sir.
So now I'm in second place.
I'm almost there.
Ella is moving her way up the ranks. She's going to get there. It's going to happen.
No, she's not.
But it's okay. We'll see what happens this week. So with all of that being said, up first is this year's Cinderella story of March Madness, the St. Peter's Peacocks, and their matchup against Purdue on Friday night. So I'll start this one off by saying I saw both of the St. Peter's games. I saw them play Kentucky. That was insane. That was that was honestly probably the most exciting thing of the trip. And then when they played Murray State too, I mean, that team is scrappy. They shoot and then they throw everyone underneath the basket and then they just get the rebound until they get the ball in. But I do think that Purdue is just a little stronger. I mean, you know, Jaden Ivey's one of the best players in the country, so I got to go with Purdue.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I want that story. I want St. Peter's. I want them, and I'm going to take them. I think they can roll off their momentum and take down Purdue.
We see it every year. There's always a team that beats a team in the first round they shouldn't. Oh, they ride the momentum into the second round. They get to the third round and fall apart. I'm picking Purdue. St. Peter's is done. Purdue played really well against Michigan, and it's St. Peter's. St. Peter's school looks like an office building. That's all I got to say. And with that, let's get on to our last pick of the night. Coach K is in the middle of his last dance, and after coming back to beat Michigan State last night, his next stop's going the way of a storybook ending are the Texas Tech Red Raiders Thursday night in the Sweet 16. So guys, will Duke keep it going, or will TTU ruin the fairy tale story that Duke definitely wants?
So I'm going to keep this one pretty short and sweet here. I am pretty sure that if I chose Duke, my mother would kick me out of the house. So Texas Tech all the way.
My family is quite literally on the same page as Madeline's, and I do not care that it is Coach K's last season. I do not want to see Duke in another Elite Eight or Final Four or championship game. I want Texas Tech to take this game, and I think they are going to.
Listen, the story was written before the tournament started. Duke is going to win this game. I'm picking Duke. We saw how good they looked against Izzo and Michigan State. In the last couple minutes, Duke looked unstoppable. They were able to just clutch it up and play well after having a tough first half, granted. But I think that Duke is going to go all the way, and I think that they have a really good shot of winning this tournament with some lackluster teams still in the bracket.
Wow.
They do have to get through UNC again.
Well, Rams, that is all the sports news we've got for you tonight. Make sure to tune in for Ren Wadsworth on Desk tomorrow, and we'll see you so soon. Have a wonderful night and enjoy all of the March Madness yet to come.